Good afternoon. Yvonne Stewart here with you in our study of Luke's Gospel. We're on chapter 15 today, looking for the treasures that God has hidden in there for us. So go ahead and hit pause real quick. Read all of chapter 15. It's not that long and it's very interesting. And then you'll have a good overview of the chapter as we study it. And then go ahead and hit play again as we look at Luke's Gospel, chapter 15, verses 1 to 17. In this chapter, Luke emphasizes Jesus' ministry to the lost with three stories that Jesus told of things lost. The main point, as is shown very well in the first story, is the rejoicing that happens when something lost is found. It's a powerful point because we have all been in that position of having lost something, searched for it, and then found it. Even finding something as ordinary as a shoe or car keys can produce a ridiculous amount of joy, especially after a long search. We happily shout out and call out to any under the sound of our voice, "Found it!" Jesus came to find people. Specifically, he came to find lost people. The ones who have messed up their lives or who have had their lives messed up for them. The already righteous don't need to be saved, but the lost do. People become lost for a wide variety of reasons, but how or why you became lost doesn't determine whether Jesus will save you. He's looking for and seeking any and all who are lost and desires to bring them home and have a celebration over them. Jesus makes the exact same point with a second parable. I have to think he wants me to understand something, and that something is how ecstatic that the atmosphere in heaven becomes over the lost being found. It makes sense. After all, God cares enough for the lost that he sent Jesus to find them. And Jesus cares so much for the lost that he left the incomparable wonder of heaven to live an earthly life so that he could find them. If Jesus and the Father are going through all that trouble, it's obvious their rejoicing is going to be wild. If a woman finding a lost coin would rejoice with all her friends, how much more does God rejoice over the sinners the lost sinners coming to faith in Jesus Christ? Like the lady's friends and the shepherd's neighbors, do you rejoice with God when the lost sinners are found? Jesus wants to illustrate this point about rejoicing of the lost being found one more time through an extreme story about a man and his two sons. In this story, the lost son represents all people who are living life their own way before they are found by the Father. The older son represents all those who think they're too good and holy to rejoice over the lost son being restored. The story begins with the rebellion of the younger son displayed in a shocking and despicable way. In his father's will, the younger son would typically receive a third of his father's estate. By asking for it while the father is still alive is akin to saying, "Your life isn't important to me. I wish you were already dead." It's the height of selfishness. The younger son's selfishness and rebellion is confirmed in verse 13. The son moved far away from his father and home and country as he possibly could, and he lived the life of a wastrel and a partier, having no thoughts except the pleasure of the moment. We may be astonished at this rebellion and dishonor for the values and relationships the son threw away. But really, in our own seasons of running from God, were we any better? If you're in a season of running from God, is that an accurate picture of your life and attitude? This parable is meant to wake us up to the sin in our own life, to rip off the seemingly glamorous covering and see how awful it truly is. When we are so full of ourselves, running from home, running from God, running from our true self with its callings and provisions, and eventually God's going to let us hit rock bottom, like the younger son did in verses 14 to 16. Why would he do that? It might not sound like a very loving father. However, in his great love, God allows us the freedom of will and the freedom of choice. He will allow us to take our blessings and squander them if that's what we think we want. The reason is because so many people need to learn things the hard way. They don't believe that the wealth and comfort and safety of God's house is all that. Surely there must be more out there. There must be better out there. It's a lie and a deception as old as Adam and Eve in the garden. But the more turns out to be a curse. God will allow us to chase all those fantasies, and he will allow us to hit rock bottom so that we will come to our senses. By any chance, are you running from God? Are you chasing after the things of the world and dishonoring the good that God wants for you? How far will you have to fall before you come to your senses? Well, that's all for today. We're going to keep looking at the story of the lost son next time. But I hope that today you received some revelation from God about the importance of rejoicing over things lost being found. Join me again right here on Monday at 12 Central, and we are going to get to the last half of chapter 15. Have a blessed week.